All right. So welcome to another episode of Hasik ng Lagim, otherwise known as Dead Air, a horror podcast. I am this week's guest. My name is Ramon De Veyra, and joining me are the regular hosts. We've got Chris Costello, who is the horror fanatic, and we've got Aaron Cristobal, carrying the spirit of Del Close in the country. She is a horror lover, shall we say?
Yes.
Maybe not in a relationship, but casual hookups with horror. And we have Miguel Nascinceno, our photographer extraordinaire, who is our cowardly lion, but very cuddly.
Yes.
Oh, wow, Ramon, that's so good.
That was the best introduction this entire season.
I know.
Easily the best one we've ever had.
Next
So
time,
guys,
let's
welcome.
Keep that, please keep that.
yeah,
Thank you.
forever. let's just get Ramon to introduce every episode.
Yeah, the external voice.
Thank you, Ramon. That was great.
They're coming to get you, Barbara.
Dead Air, a horror podcast.
Brought to you by Big Baby Studios.
Yes.
Yeah,
And
so that was our introduction, and that was an introduction to our guest as well.
Yes.
It's a very special episode because our guest, we've already met him, Ramon De Veyra, is actually one of the reasons why we started this podcast. Is because we got on his show, and we had a lot of fun.
Yeah.
you know,
so
Ramon, you
and
are
me,
such
Chris.
an inspiration to
I know.
us. You as a human being.
Yeah.
You are such an inspiration to this podcast. Just listening to you speak makes us think that, you know what? We want to be exactly like him. When we listen to you on Ed Slate, it's the most sexy, inspiring, beautiful voice.
Insightful.
Yes.
My goal is to be the Ramon of Dead Air.
Good luck. Tangina, kumakain ka lang ng yelo dyan eh.
Thanks so much for gaslighting me, guys, because gaslighting is a big part of the movie that I've chosen for this week.
Oh, I love that. Before we talk about the gaslighting of your chosen film, we'd like to ask you about your horror origin. Before all of that,
My horror origin, well, thereby hangs a tale. Well, just kidding. No. But
We are all ears.
actually,
We wait with bated breath.
beautiful.
I wasn't super a fan of horror. I really only started watching in earnest maybe mid-20s because when I was
so
a kid,
recent.
Yeah, because well, thanks for thinking that I'm young now, but
Yeah.
it
He
was
meant his age, not the decade, Miguel.
Shit, sorry.
Yes, that's true. This is how very special the episode is. Like special is in the other way. But when we were kids, it used to be parang sort of a dare. You know, when you would watch movies at your friend's place with neighborhood kids, and then of course we'd watch stuff that we want to watch, yung mga Goonies, stuff like that. But then every now and then there would be a horror, and then it would be parang a dare, diba? Parang
Yeah.
Pero of course we're all cowards, and we're watching it together. We're not alone at home, and then we're just trying to have fun and try not to be too scared, but also it was the only occasion at that age to see some titties.
I mean, yeah.
Diba?
Yeah. Yes.
But when I started getting really into film, I sort of didn't really look into it so much until I started realizing that I should, because it's such a pure form of what you want to be doing with film, where you're basically engineering and designing everything to elicit specific responses, and it's manipulation in a sort of base way of the audience. And the most immediate way you can do that is actually with horror, because you can, or like comedy, but because you can't fake that. You either laugh or you don't, or you're either scared or you're not. You can sort of fake how emotionally affected you are by the story of this, immigrant family with, struggles. But if it's horror or it's comedy, you're either scared or you laugh. And that's it.
That was such an incredible description of horror. Like, can you come on every week?
just sit there and
Just
then
like,
once
you
in a
can't
while
fake it.
come in with this awesome insight.
So that's super cool. But what were those films that you would dare each other to watch?
It was the 80s Kadiri stuff, eh. Diba? Yung
Pet
mga-
Cemetery.
Worst, dude.
Pet Cemetery.
80s
Troll.
Kadiri stuff. But Jaws was
just
great.
Mostly, Jaws, I think I watched
True.
that with my relatives. But that one, Jaws is great. But the one I remember, kasi were the gory things.
The really gory stuff,
Yeah.
80s gore.
Friday
Yeah,
the third.
Yeah, some slashers, a lot of monster stuff. But what I appreciated also was because it was the 80s and early 90s, it was all basically practical effects. And then a lot of, gory blood. I remember when we were trying to watch, have you guys seen any of the Faces of Death?
Yes, and I honestly think you were the one who told me to watch it.
Wait, when you say
In
any
college,
of the
I think.
Faces of Death, there's several movies of this?
It's several volumes
Series. Yeah.
na purporting to be true documentary footage daw of, people being mutilated
Dying.
but I mean it's up in the air whether it's real or not. But the funny thing is, one of the places I would watch these videos was during Days with the Lord weekends in high school. So if you're not having the actual retreat, then you'd sleep over at your friend's place that's near the school. And that was really my only attraction. I didn't really care for the religion stuff. It was just like weekend, sleeping at your friend's place, and then we just watch and play video games while we're not, praying to God or whatever. So that was where we watched a bunch of like Faces of Death, and there are these, people being beheaded, throats slit, mga mutilated limbs. It was like weird, gory. You have to look away, but then you're like fascinated, and it's like, is this an episode of Fangoria that's just being, that's how you showing how it's done with the practical special effects, Tom Savini, etc. But yeah, I mean, when
That's exactly what you would expect at a retreat. Yes.
Yeah, especially with Days with the Lord, diba?
Yes.
It's either that or like PlayStation nonstop. And then, but yeah, I mean, when I started really sort of studying more filmmakers, and specifically, I think what really triggered it for me in terms of like, I'm going to start studying this now was going through the filmography of Kubrick, who was becoming my favorite filmmaker at the time. And then, of course, you have to go through The Shining, and then you realize how effective it is, how awesome it is. And I was like, oh, okay, so you can do it talaga with a certain panache, a certain style, diba? Because the slashers would be sort of schlocky and very obvious and shock factor. But I appreciated with The Shining, it was very stylish, moody, and to be a bit film snob-auteur about it. There was an authorial style, diba?
Okay, got it.
You could like, okay, he's doing this, and then it's creating this effect. Even the parts that one might say are boring, parang, it lulls you into a certain safety, and then biglang, there's a guy in a bear suit giving head to another guest.
So that part of horror, like the opposite of The Shining, the very broad ones, even if they were representative of time and place, did that interest you, or later on pa, or not so much until now?
Not so much. I think I had dismissed it na parang hindi siya serious, hindi siya artist. Diba? Parang shits and giggles lang to, masyadong madali, parang ganun. Pero when you appreciate, then you start watching the really acclaimed horror that has more cerebral things on its mind, and then you appreciate like what's parang medyo a shallow jump scare versus the establishment of real atmospheric mood, or trying to fold in some genuine emotional drama where you will actually care about the characters. Because sometimes those films is just like parang taking bets as who's gonna die first.
Right.
Yeah.
Who's the annoying bully who's gonna get shafted in the nuts. Mga ganon. Pero later on, it's like, pucha, ba't ako umiiyak sa the others? Parang ganon, di ba? Parang
right.
Yeah.
And then, so, I mean, it was one of those things where I had to learn more about the real greats working within that genre. And even the not so greats, but had one great film, or they only stayed really, or they were really effective really only with horror. I mean, like, let's say Wes Craven, he did music for the heart, but you're not going to think of that when you think of Wes Craven. It's really going to be the horror stuff.
Yeah.
Yep. What, so like, since you started in the 20s, in your 20s, and until now, I guess you've been watching dabbling in the genre every once in a while now. How has, in your opinion, how has it kind of developed and grown? Or not just opinion, but like, how have you enjoyed the genre kind of grow? Because it's been different per decade. Very, extremely different per decade, actually.
Yeah, like now nga, it's like the post-horror feel na nga, diba? That movement. And then so, like when you track that whole trajectory, Ramon, how do you feel about that whole arc of horror now?
I'm really excited about it because especially there's even in a way a pre this movie I chose and a post this movie I chose because it was such a one of the reasons I chose this film. No, and are we dragging this out or
No. They'll cut it up.
All right, so I chose Get Out. Okay, Jordan Peele's excellent directorial debut, and I chose it for a couple of reasons. One is that it's fairly recent and was very famous. But it's also very good. And that's rare. It's rare that it's all of those things. And I thought it might be easier for some people to find so that, or, more likely some people have seen it, but maybe have not delved into it as deep as we're going to go.
Yes.
But I remember when it came out, it just felt so refreshing that it was this perspective that we weren't used to. I mean, there have been, of course, Black directors of horror before. There have been Black characters in horror before. One of my favorites is Night of the Living Dead. I mean, if you've seen the original Romero, the Black guy there.
Heartbreaking end.
Yeah. Heartbreaking end, but he's also the best character there. He's the most calm, the most prepared. Because he had his whole life, di ba? Parang fighting off the whites. No zombies were no problem na. And then everyone else was falling apart. But there's also Candyman, where you have the antagonist is a Black character. But with Get Out, it felt like such a primal example of the main character, and such an important part of the story is his lived experience as a Black man. And actually, if you think about it, the horror is quote-unquote racism. Si Peele has referred to it as a social thriller. There's not really like a monster there. It's really racism. Deadly racism.
Like parang the trauma that comes from being a colored person in America. Parang I don't know, I'm sure parang me drawing this line can be easily ripped apart. But parang even the TV shows we love now, it explores the collective trauma of Black people, let's say from Lovecraft and even shucks, what was the one before that most of us love? Yes, Watchmen. Parang yung ganong klaseng social aspect of it. Parang I feel it's a short throw away from Get Out. Parang that's the first time parang a genre film explored that sort of social message. Galing lang.
Well, the horror really should have a social aspect to it. You always should reference society. No, always. Otherwise, it's just like Sharknado. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
In a way that does sort of.
It does kind of.
Maybe we should say na good horror should reflect society. But in a way, kasi even Sharknado will reflect Trump America.
Yes. And actually, didn't he was approached to play the president, I think. Right?
Oh my God.
In one of the Sharknados.
I'm sure he was wanting to, and then other people had to walk him back.
My God, I haven't seen any of these. Sharknado. Parang these are things.
I honestly, I haven't seen it. It's just
if I see that poster, it's no way I'm going in.
Parang nothing will match our imagination.
So stupid.
How
exactly.
Stupid it probably is.
There's another one, right? The newest one, Velocipastor.
I want to see that though. I want to see that.
I think
because it's ridiculous. Did you read the synopsis?
Yeah. No, I didn't.
The synopsis is incredible.
I just saw the poster,
It feels like it was greenlit based on the pun title alone.
The name,
And then they had to come up with something. It doesn't matter what.
Exactly.
But sorry, I don't know if I answered your question. But I guess I was going to say is I really appreciate post Get Out that there are more films tackling perspectives we're not familiar with. Even if it's if it's like Antebellum or The Babadook or
I was just gonna bring up Antebellum.
The Nightingale, which is not quite horror, but it's the Babadook director's follow-up, and then it's about also sort of racism because it's about Aborigines running in Australia being hunted by supremacists.
I think, I also lost my point there for a second. But what I was going to say is the great horror is really should be reflective of society. And I haven't seen a horror film recently that was so overt about the social message as Get Out was. Like it was really in your face. And I guess a lot of people hated it for that fact, but I think it's a triumph because of that.
Yeah.
Did people hate it? Did it get bad reviews?
If we're going to say people, we're probably going to be talking about,
rednecks.
white supremacists
Yeah.
and
Right,
rednecks.
Mhm.
Yeah, there was a lot of pushback against
Interesting.
against Get Out and it's all the acclaim it got. But I mean, obviously these are people who watch Sharknado
Oh, boom.
and wear red hats.
Yeah.
So yeah.
When you guys watched Get Out, what was your experience with it? I'm trying to remember if I was with you guys.
It was
Did they
really
watch it with you?
uncomfortable.
I
Did
think
they
I
watch
mean,
it with you?
Maybe we were at Century City.
Oh, maybe.
I remember I
I
was
don't
with
know.
Quark and Gina because I'll tell the story if you guys weren't there.
Yes,
Okay,
please.
And
Okay,
I
so
might
was-
remember that I was there.
Wait. Sorry. Really quickly, can I interrupt? Just so we get kind of at the start of the episode, Miguel, can you give us a really quick summary on what Get Out is about?
Correct. Tama.
Right. Crap. So Get Out is about a black guy being taken to visit his girlfriend's white family, and they're like this affluent white town, and well, without parang simple lang naman yung plot. Things get crazy.
Yeah, hijinks ensue.
Hijinks ensue.
Hijinks ensue. Yeah.
And then you find out that this whole gentle, liberal family isn't who they are.
Yeah. Perfect. Yeah.
Yeah.
Great.
All
All
right.
right,
Go, Ramon.
back to your
I
story.
want
Bob.
to hear the story.
Okay, so when I watched it was at Century City. I remember I was with Quark and Gina. And the reason I remember that so well was Gina did not know it was horror that we were watching. So we just, because they trust us, diba? So we were saying,
Yeah,
let's
so
all
there's-
watch this together. And then, so Gina arrived, saw the poster. She thought it was like a rom-com, diba? Because, I mean, it is inspired.
Alison, yeah.
One of the inspirations talaga is the classic Guess Who's Coming to Dinner, diba? With Sidney
Yes.
Poitier.
Yes.
Which was remade with Bernie Mac and Ashton Kutcher and Zoe Saldana. Pero the better one is Guess Who's Coming to Dinner.
Race flipped.
Yeah, and then so di ba parang si Sidney Poitier was brought home to meet the white partner's family, and they didn't know how to deal with it. Except this one was a horror, and then so Gina thought this was like a rom-com or some kind of romantic dramedy na parang parang get out of here, parang ganun casting out. So and then the funny thing is so we watched it and we love it. We have such a great time, but unbeknownst to us, I had another group of friends who were seated in front of us who were watching it also. And then they also had one member of their group who also thought this was a romantic comedy. so we had two people na parang totally opposite expectations.
Who got naloko ng mga kaibigan into watching a movie. Yeah.
So were you there, Miguel? Was that the one?
I think so, because I remember talking about it with some of you guys right after.
Okay, so that's,
But anyway,
that's probably the one.
Yeah. Is
How
this
about you,
also the
Chris?
breakout role of
Kaluuya?
Shucks?
Kaluuya?
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Because
So
he had
I
only
actually saw
basically
this
been-
in the US and it got a standing
Oh,
ovation.
how was that?
I'm so envious.
Oh, they were all white, weren't they? There was
No.
guilt clapping.
Wait, where were
There
you,
was a-
Aaron? Where
I was
New
in
York?
New
What
York.
city?
I was in New York.
Ah, there you go.
Wow.
Where in New York?
Brooklyn. I lived
Oh,
there.
that's a good place to watch it. Pero
Yeah.
I remember when it was new at the time, the places that I was seeing where the crowd though would go bananas, whereas Harlem and Compton.
Yeah.
And you can expect naman, you can understand why, diba? I mean, especially
Yeah.
when you get to the ending. Like
Yeah.
when those cop lights show up and then everyone's like freaking out. But then when you
Yeah.
see who's there, talagang, the
They're-
place just
May release.
does-
Yeah.
everyone just does backflips bigla.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was fun watching it there actually because you could really feel the tension. Mas may tension doon.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
right?
Tayo third-party spectator. Personal lang, oh my God, this is about us.
Parang ano
Exactly.
Kasi majority tayo dito eh.
Yeah.
Right.
Hindi tayo naapi.
Yeah.
I mean,
Exactly.
maybe if we were in the States, we'd laugh
Feel
louder.
We'd feel something, yeah.
Yeah. But syempre, I mean, we were fans of film and just in general fans of Jordan Peele. It's such a surprise
Yeah.
also to me because I really only knew him from
As a
Comedy.
comedian, from Key
You know
and Peele
what's
and
funny?
TV.
You know what's funny about my expectations for Get Out when I came in was number one, I only knew Jordan Peele as a comedian,
Yeah.
but watching it, I don't know why I was so surprised at how funny the movie was.
Yeah.
It's like I should have expected it that it was funny because of the director, but it just kept surprising me that it was actually a really really funny movie.
Yeah.
It's weird your expectations flip when you're being told that it's a horror film. And if anyone told me that I was watching a movie directed by Jordan Peele, I'd be like, oh, so this is going to be fucking hilarious.
Yeah.
But I was just so surprised. The movie's hilarious. It's
so
really,
good.
really funny. It's darkly funny.
Yeah.
Galing na he had this in his back pocket the whole time.
Yeah.
Like making those years of making those skits, meron pala siyang ginagawang ganito.
He was actually 8 years. It took that long. 8 years from first thought to release. But he didn't put pen to paper for the first 5 years. It was just like sort of stewing in his mind.
I totally believe that it's been 8 years because there is so much that has been put into that film. Yeah. And, it's even better watching it the second, third time around. I saw it, I think, the fourth time just for this podcast. And just the amount of stuff that you pick up on and that you realize, even when watching it again, knowing what the conceit is. So now you're trying to pick stuff up. And like one of the best things I picked up during this viewing is, because they had the whole, first of all, like there are all these tidbits about how what's her name separates her cereal because she doesn't want the coloreds and the milk to mingle.
Yeah.
But so stuff like that. All these little like throwaway stuff, like she has photos of her conquests on the wall, kind of like her father would mount,
the
deer.
heads.
Right.
And so they're conquests. They're people like, but my favorite one was like at the very beginning pa lang. He's a photographer. And what does he shoot in?
Black and white.
Black and white.
Yeah.
It's like just tiny, tiny details that, that he really, really thought it out. Like for a first-time writer-director, it's incredible. Like the amount of detail he brought to the film. Since we're sharing personal stories about Get Out, I want to share something really quickly. I don't know why Miguel keeps laughing at me when I'm trying to say something.
Go ahead.
Damn, it's like,
go ahead.
He loves how personal it's getting.
I know.
What I wanted to share was because I'm a big fan of Jordan Peele, of course, obviously, coming into the movie. And then he had a contest online where it was like, well, not a contest, but basically like he was just posting like work or artistic work inspired by the movie just when it came out. And he would repost it on his Instagram and whatever. So I made one and then he reposted it. I thought it was the best thing in the world.
Wow.
I was like, oh my God, Jordan Peele just retweeted my artwork. He put it, and then later he came up with a book.
Oh,
No
yes.
way, you're
It's
in
called
it.
Now You're in the Sunken Place.
Oh.
And
You gotta okay.
that's my
Wow.
work.
I didn't know it was a full
for the
page.
listeners
Nice.
who
Yeah.
can't see, because the listeners can't see what you're doing, Chris just held up a book and can I see the artwork? Let's describe it.
This is artwork from the movie, no, Chris?
Yes, it's artwork from
Inspired,
the movie,
yeah.
inspired by the movie. So like it's a lot of stuff. It's really,
Okay,
really
so
cool.
there are
Let me find
pictures.
mine.
You have to describe it, Chris, with feelings.
I don't know how to describe the image itself. Wait, let me
It is an
It's
image of a man.
Chris that's parang
I see.
against the antlers. Tama ba?
Yeah, he's holding up the deer.
Ayun, okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
Oh, this one, this dark one.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, so he's in the sunken place right now because he's blue and he's holding up the deer.
Was this inspired by
That's
the deleted scenes?
I have not seen the deleted scenes. What are you talking about?
wow.
Please enlighten me.
All right, so medyo non-linear na tayo. Pero there's a deleted scene where in his capture, the main capture na, he's in the sunken place and then they leave him there and then he takes out a lighter and he's trying to flick it open, but it doesn't catch it just sparks, right? And every time it sparks, there's parang a shape in the back that he can't see that's coming closer and closer. And then when the flame finally catches, you see it's a deer but completely skeletonized, and then it sort of screams in his face, and then it cuts there. So I know it's
Oh shit! I think that was in the trailer. It was in the trailer, right?
it may have been.
It's in the trailer.
Yeah.
But it was never in
But
the
it's
movie.
not in the film. It would have been a little bit over the top because at this point, nag-cut na tayo kay Rod, his friend who was trying to figure out what was going on. So yeah, I remember when you posted that illustration and I liked it. So I was really happy that not only was it retweeted by Peele, but it got included in this book. And I didn't know it was a full page in the book. So applause.
Yeah.
Ay, nako. So paano to? Do I just go through like tidbits or what? Because it's like,
Yeah, dude. I mean, like it's
a
really
lot. It's a lot.
There's no
what's the cap
there's no
of your
framework.
episodes?
It's usually a little over an hour, but
we're gonna bust
for
that
you.
bitch.
We can do about 3 or 4 hours.
Oh, sige, so let's start. Just kasi look, I'll show you visually, but I'm holding up 2 pages. So,
I love it, guys. I love it when our guests are so prepared.
I know.
We say this all the time. It's like it's always the episodes are always better when the guest is really into the movie.
Yeah.
Super.
I
And
mean,
I can see.
Yeah, this was my favorite film of 2017. I actually wish it won Best Picture. It was nominated, won for original screenplay. It was also nominated for director and actor. But for me lang, it should have won picture.
What won that year?
Now I don't know. May have been, was it Gravity? Hindi naman that far apart. No?
2017. I don't think it was Gravity.
But my number 2 was My number 2 was Blade Runner 2049. Which one that year? It may have been Revenant or something like that.
Yeah.
You know, that's how much it left an impression on you.
Oh no, Moonlight.
No kidding.
No, it's not.
I'm looking at the wrong year, dude. So
it wasn't 2017. It was probably 2016 then.
Yeah.
Revenant or Birdman?
It must have been Birdman, I think.
Yun.
Oh no, Spotlight.
Oh, okay. Well, I like Spotlight one, but
I like Spotlight also.
But this one was I still feel better. Like it was a level above kasi Spotlight, which is well made, great, but this one did so many things that you hadn't really seen before and executed so well and frustratingly by a first-time director. Anyway, so going on now. So
please.
It's one of the few films that got nominated for Best Picture that is a horror.
Or even just genre, actually. Any kind of genre.
I think
sci-fi is very few.
There is Black Swan.
Rosemary's? Was that ever nominated?
Maybe Rosemary's Baby. Sixth Sense, definitely. Silence of the Lambs.
Silence.
So, yeah, I mean, and then, okay, so it was a 23-day shoot in Alabama, which is funny because they shot in Trump country.
Yeah.
And it's where you'd expect this kind of place to be set, but the setting is in a clever sort of uncommon way. It's actually set in the Northeast. It's set in upstate New York, which is, I think, probably the kind of casual racism that Peele himself had experienced. So
sure,
makes sense.
Yeah, it's a Blumhouse film. So Blumhouse films are all capped at 5 million budgets. That's how they make money. So
that's how they make a lot of films.
Yeah, and how they make a lot of films. Yes, because it's always low risk to major studios, diba? And all you need to do is hit 15 million in the box office. You turn a profit already.
Yeah.
But there are, that is like a limit. Some people really hit hard, and you can tell like I don't know if you've seen the Craft Legacy, but you can really feel like they ran out of money here. Parang ganon.
Yeah, they totally ran out of money.
Diba? And then so it was a 4.5. They didn't even go the full 5. So it was a $4.5 million budget that ultimately ended up making $255 million worldwide. So that's awesome. A crazy return on investment, and it made. I'm not sure if it's still the record holder, but I think it's the most profitable indie film. Like I think it even beat Blair Witch because it had 255 worldwide. But it was the first Peele was the first African American filmmaker to hit 100 million on a debut film na original screenplay. So again, I've mentioned I think it took 8 years from beginning to release. The first 5 he hadn't written anything yet. It was just a thought that he was gathering ideas for. He finally started writing it when a producer said, I'm going to actually pay you to submit me your first draft. And he did his first draft in 2 months. It was that fast because he'd already been thinking about it for so long.
Yeah.
One of the inspirations, of course, I've mentioned is Guess Who's Coming to Dinner. But Peele himself has talked about how he was also thinking about it starting with the 2008 primary battle between Obama and Clinton. Because what happened was he was thinking, parang there were these 2 figures that he thought would be fine candidates. But he was also thinking in the back of his head, like, parang which group has been waiting more? Is it black people or women? So
women.
So that was one of the things that kind of came into his mind. And then I'm sure it's also probably inspired by the fact that Peele himself is a mixed race child. He has interracial parents.
Oh, I didn't realize
and
that.
Then
both of them, Key and Peele, they talk about it a lot.
And he Jordan himself is married to Chelsea Peretti, who is white.
Yeah.
So I don't know if they've discussed that in public, but probably there's some kind of experience there that
I wonder if when he met her family for the first time, her dad was like, "My man," and then he wrote it in the script.
Actually, I'm also wondering now, what was the first meeting like after they watched Get Out? Parang lang, akala ko magkaibigan tayo.
Gumagawa ka pala ng pelikula.
Oo nga, parang, oh my God. Tapos, it premiered at Sundance, and it was so interestingly, it was he was first thinking about it during the primary of Obama and Clinton, but when it premiered, it was within 1 week of Trump's inauguration. Tapos, it was at Sundance, which is in January, and it was a special, parang surprise midnight screening where people didn't know what they were gonna get. Pero there was enough buzz about it that one of the first people to watch it was Malia Obama. So parang more interesting chururuts. And then
she was also working in film. Yeah, wasn't she like being a PA or?
She's interested in it.
Yeah,
may nanood ng The Way I See It. Yeah.
No, I mean even before parang. Yeah, anyway, yeah.
So
go for it.
Ano pa? So they shot in Alabama. They were cast and crew were in a quote unquote haunted hotel, which apparently was used as a Confederate hospital. And then and the town that they were shooting in had Confederate flags everywhere now. So that's funny. They shot it in Trump country, but the writing. Peele has mentioned that the writing is kind of a rebuke to the post-Obama racism is over daw era. And you can sort of feel that, diba? The parang some of the liberal elites.
Hilarious. Racism got worse after Obama.
Yeah, it can't exist anymore because we elected, a black president. It's over.
Yeah.
So he was parang, forget you guys. We're black. We know what's going on. So what else? And then the title is inspired by a couple of things. It's one of the things that you hear black people in theaters and horror movies shout. Yeah. That's what he said. And then the other one that I like is it's also a sort of an homage to a classic Eddie Murphy bit from his special Delirious. And the bit is about why there are no black families in horror films. Because now, the scene that I'm gonna sort of wreck this joke. Sorry, Eddie Murphy, but so you'd have the black family being toured around the haunted house, and then the dad would be saying, "Oh, this is such a beautiful place," and then the ghost would whisper, "Get out," and then the dad would say, "Too bad we can't stay here, bye," and then credits. So that's what they know. There's too much sense. There's too much.
Yeah,
they've been through too much. Now any small thing that goes around, they're like, "Yeah, let's get out of here." Parang
a little threat.
Yeah. So
I know what's I felt like. So man, there's so many things I want to say about this movie, but like one of the first things really is Daniel Kaluuya's character Chris. Really at the beginning, he's so consistent. I think he's such an underrated actor because he was so good in this movie.
Yep.
But he is holding back so much on purpose. Like his character is really this is obviously my interpretation of because I do not have the same experience as black people do, but like the way I see it is the way he was playing Chris was he's like this black man who's really just gone through everything. So he does not want to get involved in anything. Like he's always like, just okay, yeah, sure. The cop asks for his ID. It's Allison who's like, no, you can't fucking ask for his ID. But he's like, no, here it is. The way he talks to everyone, he kind of looks down. He's very conflict avoidant.
Yep.
And I think that is really purposeful. I mean, of how. If you want to survive in America as a black man, that's the one thing you have to do.
Keep your head down.
Keep your head down. Be conflict avoidant.
Yeah. And parang and I'd see that in the news, diba? Parents talking, especially with all the BLM, with what's been happening in this year lang. It's only this year, guys. It feels like it's so long ago.
This year will never end.
I know. It was just this year. So all these interviews on TV were talking about parents who teach their kids that you never disrespect. You always say yes, sir. That's just how you teach your kid all the time growing up and to be prepared to be, pushed to the ground and stuff like that. And that's something that we don't really I mean,
Yeah.
I don't experience anything like that. So it's really sad.
There's an arc with Kaluuya's character, no, si Chris, because as Chris mentions, he's very non-confrontational because he knows what it's like. It's about not the lived experience then of being a black man in the United States. And then he's New Yorker pa. So he knows now if he just gives any excuse to any racist, then he could be killed. So he has to sort of keep everything contained. But it slowly bubbles, diba? Because he experiences like microaggressions and then of course...
And then the rage he lets out at the end.
And it explodes at the end in such a satisfying manner. But also to go to how good Kaluuya is, I keep forgetting that he's British.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, wow.
The first time I saw him like speak his actual accent was like, I think an interview with Colbert. And I'm like, oh my gosh. But diba, kasi, I mean, the first time people saw him was
Sicario.
Black Mirror.
Oh, okay.
Well, I think Black Mirror was, I think, where more people... Kasi medyo maliit lang siya sa Sicario. But Black Mirror, he was the star of the second episode, diba? Yung 15 million demerits. Or 15 million merits. And then that's where Peele saw him. And then apparently he was so good in the audition. He did 5 takes and then it was the 1-tier scene with the hypnosis. So all 5 takes, he was able to make that 1-tier come out at the exact same time. And then Jordan Peele just offered him the role na on the spot.
Yeah.
And then one of the producers also had this story na Daniel is so intense. I mean, not like as a person, but in terms of acting, sobrang intense na he gets physically exhausted. So after takes, he has to lie down. Ganun siya.
Is he classically trained? Let me check.
That I'm not sure. But
improv guy siya, dude.
Diba, parang after this and then after seeing him in this and then Get Out and Get Out, Widows and then Black Panther and then Queen and Slim, it's like every time I see him in an interview, it's like, oh nga pala, he's British.
Yeah.
That going back to the you were building up to Ramon about like throughout the film it's just full of microaggressions and then he finally releases it and then the whole fact that his character is so conflict avoidant is because he's probably taught as a young kid to not just do everything he can to not be shot.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, so sad. That's why the ending is so fucking powerful for me because I think for everyone, but I really think it's for everyone. But for me, my personal experience was at the very end when he's like killed pretty much fucking everyone, and then that cop car shows up.
Yeah.
My fucking stomach dropped because I was like, he's gonna get fucking shot.
Yeah.
They're gonna come out. They're gonna shoot him to death.
Yeah.
Like just because, you know what I mean?
Yeah. And it's so cathartic tuloy when you see the door open and it says airport and then you just put 2 and 2 together.
Yeah.
So, and then as I mentioned, parang people start doing backflips na. So parang there's so many, hard to talk about it. So in terms of like a macro sense, one of the things that I think is super interesting then is it's not just about loss of life. That's not the danger or the fear. It's about the loss of identity and personhood. So it has that layer, right? It's always talking about the social, racial aspect. And then it also very cleverly flips on its head what is considered like the reason that white people fear black people is because they fear that they will be supplanted by the black race.
Replaced.
Yeah. And then here, they flip it because it's literally white people being put inside black people's bodies.
Yeah.
So that's one of the things I loved. And then it also, one of the things that I remember also being amazed by is how he's such a fan of Hitchcock, which really comes across in a lot of the shots. Even something as minor as
a lot of the staging.
Yeah. And even the fact that he's a photographer and then he would look at people through his lens. It's a way of distancing himself from other people, but it also recalls things like Rear Window. The voyeur gaze that Hitchcock loved so much. And then what else? Wait, let's go to the first scene. First scene pa lang to. We haven't even basically started.
Go for it.
So
Lakeith?
Okay, Maui, you can start recording na. Let's get it. So the first scene, I don't know if you guys spotted this, malamang Chris did, but it's kind of an homage to Halloween. It's a long take.
Oh yeah, yes.
It's a long Steadicam take on like a deserted
walking
suburban
on the
road.
Suburbs.
Yeah, and then one of the things is also Lakeith Stanfield plays Andre, diba? But at this point, hindi pa siya sikat from Atlanta. So his he's credited as Keith Stanfield lang, hindi pa Lakeith. Hindi pa siya parang, ready to fully embrace the blackness of that name.
Blackness.
So that parang just an interesting real world application. Because also one of the things that Peele was talking about was the reason he took so long to start this project was he had sort of internalized the lack of representation, and he was second guessing himself, thinking na parang, can I really get away with a script where every single white person is evil? And then that was one of the things that, kept him from really pursuing the project. Anyway, so the intro is a Halloween homage. And then si Lakeith sort of does this joke where he says suburb like a white person. So parang it's like the Chappelle white person voice.
Yeah.
But it's also foreshadowing because he gets occupied talaga and becomes a white person.
He becomes a white man. Yeah.
And then he says something like, it's like a hedge maze in here, which is a reference to The Shining. Which is one of Peele's favorites. And then there's the classic horror movie trope of the incongruous song, diba? Parang it's something violent and dark is happening on screen, but the song is Run, Rabbit, Run, Rabbit. This old-timey song. And then the car is kind of an homage to the shark in Jaws and to the car in Christine. And what else? There may have been one more thing.
What? Okay, this is I still haven't gotten this because I guess I haven't read it. What was with the knight's helmet? There has to be a reason for that.
Yeah, so the knight's helmet is a reference to the Templars. The Knights Templar, the old society, they were obsessed kasi with immortality. So that's kind of that's the reference basically there.
Yeah.
And then there's a speech that Bradley Whitford gives where he references the Templars, but I'm not sure if it's in the movie anymore. Because I read the script today. I watched the movie yesterday, so I'm not sure. I think the speech there happens parang in the background while Chris is talking to the blind art dealer already. But he does mention like, our father, my father would have talked about the Templar and their mission to be the best.
Got it.
So the obsession also with the best is parang you have to use quote unquote black bodies kasi tinalo siya ni Jesse Owens.
Genetically
yun lang
superior.
yun actually. This whole thing started kasi medyo
Tinalo.
napikon
Si Granddad.
And he couldn't accept na it was just he wasn't as good. He came to the conclusion na black bodies talaga yan eh. It's biology against me. And then that whole thing started of like, let's take these bodies. And then so the theme of the score begins, and then it's also dissonant. It's like a lot of whispers. It's in Swahili, but if you translate it, apparently it's something like listen to your elders and run and get out of there. Parang ganon. The only English word I think is brother, which you can kind of tell if you're paying attention naman. But interestingly, this is the first film score of Michael Abel, and he does parang medyo traditional concert music. And then Jordan Peele just found one song of his on YouTube, and then he was like, this guy can scare people. So he got him. So that's an interesting. But now he's done a couple other films. Parang, syempre, I mean, why would you not? I mean, such a success your first time out. So yeah, the car is also sort of a reference to the truck and Duel. I mean, some people look into
Spielberg.
Some people look into the fact that it's a white car with a black interior. As some people
I'm sure that was on purpose. Yeah.
And then
everything is on purpose here.
It medyo is. And then we'll learn later on that this is actually Jeremy. And this is how Jeremy abducts black people for the procedures of his family. And there's a statement later on by the blind art dealer when naka-strap na si Chris na parang, I hear Jeremy's methods are a little more uncomfortable, diba? Because yun nga, parang honeypot si Rose, and then she'll seduce them, get them to come of their own volition. But if you're listening very closely and you have pretty good headphones, the voice Lakeith Stanfield is talking to is Rose, but she's using the name Crystal, but it's Alison Williams' voice. So, and then she's actually telling him to stay put because the brother's on the way to get him. Parang ganon. So yeah, more of those things na. And this is, it's not said in the film, but takes place 6 months before the first scene we see with Chris. And then Chris, of course, we see the apartment, and then as Chris mentioned, na black and white yung photography, and then you're listening to Childish Gambino's Redbone, which has lyrics like "Stay woke,
stay woke."
They go and catch you sleeping. Parang keep your eyes open. So these are all sort of warning signs. Even if you're paying attention, but if not, it's just a banger, diba? And then there's a shot of Rose choosing pastries. That's not That's not in the script, but it sort of feels like how she chooses black dudes as if they were on a menu. But I don't know. That might just be me. But just
I mean,
makes sense.
There's a scene later on, diba, where she's looking for her next victim, and then she just Googles NCAA athletes. So talagang
so good.
So yeah, sobrang ano tong babaeng to.
She is so good in this movie.
Yeah.
I was not the biggest fan of her in Girls. Actually, I'm not a big fan of Girls at all.
What?
But
so good.
No, I know it's good. I just watch it and I just see white privilege.
Yeah.
So I just can't get into it. But and I always thought she was kind of one of those like really beautiful women that just is just there because she's beautiful, you know?
Yeah.
Like I don't know if you guys watch Friday Night Lights, but Minka Kelly is this really gorgeous girl who cannot act for shit. She's obviously so much better than Minka Kelly. Yeah. But holy crap, in Girls, I mean. But in this movie, she is so good.
Yeah, she's really great.
A legit villain. Mm-hmm. Her turn, the reveal of her turn when she's pretending to look for the keys.
Yeah.
And then he's begging her and he's like, where are the keys, Rose? Where are the keys? And then she's like panicking. And then her turn, the switch, like you can see it in her eyes when she switches. It's so good.
Yeah.
Such a great villain.
One of the reasons I think they cast her is because they would sort of underestimate her. Nga. Parang they knew that she was Marnie in Girls. They knew she was Peter Pan. So this would go against type, diba? And
she was the daughter of
she still
Anchor.
Brian Williams.
Yeah, Brian Williams.
Who got diba? Who got not Me Too, but parang he was caught lying. He said he was in a war zone when he wasn't pala. Pero he's back on air. He's apparently been, forgiven.
Well, it's not as bad as a Me Too kasi so mayroon pa siya kasi.
That's true.
Yeah. So even Bradley Whitford was great here.
One
of my favorite West Wing actors.
Diba? See, Alison Williams also, parang they would refer to Evil Rose as Ro. And then for her to do those scenes, to do those scenes though, she would take up to 45 minutes to prepare. And then she would just walk around the set though with headphones on like a shark. And then if you talk to her though, it would be really creepy. So they would just leave her alone. Pero, diba? I mean, as you can see naman, it's so effective. My favorite especially is that scene where, yun nga, parang she's doing the fake Rose voice on the phone to Rod. Pero while the family's watching her, she's just stone cold and
her
it's
face
psychopath.
Is just so,
Pero,
galing.
Yun. Anyway, where are we now? First scene. Okay, Maui, kamusta tayo on time?
We're good. Keep going.
When they go to they actually take the trip na. There are more Shining stuff. The font is blue, which is the Shining, and the font is against trees, which is also the Shining. And then we see the first sort of thing that shows you that it's a horror film, apart from, of course, the intro. But in this sequence where Chris is now in the story is when the deer almost hits them.
Yeah.
And it's important because it introduces a couple of things. It introduces the encounter with the cops, but also it's kind of a metaphor for Chris's mom, who we learn later died in a hit and run, and she died in such a way that she was alive for a while, but no one was there with her. She was just on the street, cold and alone. So in this scene, what's interesting is Chris goes over to the deer.
Puts it out of his misery.
He doesn't. He just stays there.
Oh, he doesn't, ba?
He just stays there with the deer. Parang he bears witness to and is with this deer until it dies effectively. But yung interesting thing also is that si Rose walang pake. So this shows na may empathy si Chris and that Rose doesn't give a shit. And then the cops arrive, right? And then you have the sequence where Rose is like very woke. And it's like, why are you asking him for his ID? He wasn't driving. I was the one driving. You don't need to see his license. And when you watch it now, knowing that she's a monster, you parang realize, she's doing that so that there's no paper trail.
He doesn't see,
he never license. Hears the name of Chris. And when he goes missing, he's not going to recall the name and where he was riding. He's just going to remember, it's just a black man. They all look alike.
Yeah.
So there's that aspect. So it also establishes that the cops will not help, diba? I mean, they're a danger basically for Chris as a black man. I mean, it just reminds, I guess, the audience who are white, the whites in the audience. And then when you get to the house of the Armitages, it's sort of got these plantation columns design-wise. So that's kind of a visual reference also to sort of antebellum house design. And then there are these omega signs on the posts sa harap. And then omega, of course, means either final or ultimate. That's the meaning of the omega, diba? So it could be like, this is the end for you, or this is parang where you will become your ultimate self, basically, because of what we're going to do to your brains. And then you meet, of course,
because
the
of
parents.
the coagula.
Yes, the order of coagula. And then, so you meet the parents, Bradley Whitford and Catherine Keener. And one of the reasons they were cast daw, sabi ni Peele, is because they were like Hollywood liberal elite royalty. So parang it's so great that they're both playing, white supremacists, because they're very liberal, especially if you follow like Bradley Whitford on Twitter. You'll know that for sure. Also in this scene, Rose says something like, "Where are my keys? They were just in my hand." And that's another...
Oh, that's a foreshadowing.
Yeah, a little bit of foreshadowing. So that when you get to the reveal later, you're still sort of skeptical, buying into the fact that possibly the one person who is nice is the person who is woke, keeps talking about, all the injustice. And she also does this thing where she feigns ignorance about the whole party that's going to take place at the weekend, even though, of course, that's why they're there, because, they're going to auction him. And then he always has to be polite, diba? I mean, we've mentioned that parang he has to be non-confrontational and always has to be sort of aware, I guess, of like code switching. But, it's funny to see the parents, especially Dean, right? Bradley Whitford's character, being racially clumsy. He says, so how long has this thing been going on? And then he calls him
my man.
He calls him my man. And then he gets warned about the Obama comment, and then he does it. But that's also a nice thing where I saw somewhere someone commented, this could also mean that there's a script. Diba? So parang...
that they repeat it.
Yeah. So for all the black people that they bring over, that's one of the go-to lines. Parang so there's also these lines that are entendres, diba? Parang when they say he's showing all these parang things they've gotten in their travel, he says, "Oh, it's such a privilege to experience another person's culture."
Another person's culture.
Yeah, but because you're in the body of a black person, and then one of the things I like also is this the reveal of the grandmother in the kitchen, which is it's just suddenly she's there waiting for them, and then that was kind of a nod to the twins in The Shining, where you turn a corner and then there's someone there waiting for you now. And then the line there is like, "My mother loved her kitchen, so we keep a piece of her in here." And he's referring to...
And then she's inside.
The piece is her brain. So, parang ganun.
Got it.
And then...
Galing.
And also, see, Dean, he says something like...
Black mold?
Yeah, the black mold. Diba? Parang...
Yeah.
We had to close the basement, so you can't go down there because there's some black mold.
Because there's black mold.
Yeah, literally the black people are molds to be filled with something. Parang ganun.
Oh.
And then he also says something about how he hates deer because he's happy that they accidentally killed the deer. So he says that they're rats, they're bad for the ecosystem. This comes back to him because he gets killed by antlers. The deer is used to kill him. But also, he's sort of lying because there's the mounted buck head in the basement, but there's also a trophy in, I think, the dining room of a deer head with antlers. So parang there's like small things like that na parang, wait, I thought he didn't like deer. And then there's, in the script, it's not in the film, but in the script, one of the things Chris finds in the room is a picture of Rose in a high school production of The Crucible, which I thought was interesting because that's also a story where a young woman is deceitful, is lying, and gets people, killed. Then the tour also establishes how isolated they are. They mentioned that the nearest house is across the lake, so they have total privacy. And then one of the things also you'll notice in the film is one of the biggest motifs is mirrors and glass. Like the first time you see Chris he's putting white shaving cream on his black face. So that's the first thing you see. And then, but also there's lots of scenes where Georgina, right, is looking out the window
at herself
at the
in
reflection.
The mirror. Yeah, or reflection.
Yeah, or it's like the POV shots of looking through the camera lens where it's like, it could be sort of seen as like a person's POV is also what you're going to experience because it's also sort of what you get when you're in the sunken place. But you see what
you see it from afar.
Can't see, but from afar and you can't control it. And also it's like being occupied by another entity, quote unquote. And then you have the parang that getting to know you bonding session in the balcony with the iced tea. And this is where Catherine Keener, as soon as she talks about the dead mom, she taps the glass, right?
Yeah.
And it establishes parang
so that's the trigger.
Yeah, there's a post-hypnotic trigger already in Chris's head. Pero that same thing is what kind of shakes awake Georgina, the grandmother. And that's why when she's filling the iced tea of Chris, it overflows. And then see Missy, the mom, is like quick to dismiss her. Parang, why don't you lie down? Parang, take a rest, ganon. And then sabi ni Jordan na parang when you rewatch it now, it could be seen as like tension between mother-in-law and daughter-in-law.
Yeah.
So that was funny to me. But one of the smaller also racism things is Georgina, diba, is the grandmother. Even though si Chris yung may empty glass, she fills everyone's glass before she goes to the black man. Ano pa? And then she, at the dinner naman, they're play fighting, diba? You meet Jeremy, the douchebag brother who really wishes that,
and he assumes Chris is into UFC because he's black.
And I think also see Jeremy wants the, I don't know, this might be me, but feeling ko he wanted the body of Chris. But because there's a shot at the auction where he's parang pissed. And I thought, baka he wanted the body because he wanted to join, MMA or whatever. But I remember lang in that.
Oh, can I say about that scene though? What I really liked about that scene was Chris said that he liked judo and not any other sport. Judo is the only one where you turn your opponent's
strength,
aggression into and momentum against them.
Yeah.
So that really speaks about his character, that he's just deflecting, always deflecting.
Yeah.
He's not being, proactive. He's not going on offense.
Mm-mm.
Yeah, he's not the attacker.
And si Jeremy naman, diba, he says, that's nothing kasi jiu-jitsu yun talagang okay. And then jiu-jitsu is like chest down. You have to think moves ahead, sometimes 3 or 4. And that's foreshadowing because that's how he gets dispatched at the end. He figures out this pattern that Jeremy is doing to keep him from escaping. And then he thinks ahead and then he does something, right? Now we'll get to.
It's so hilarious at the end when he's trying to attack Chris and he's like holding a fucking lacrosse stick. It's like the whitest fucking sport in the universe.
Sobrang was.
Trying to hit someone with a lacrosse stick.
Pero diba there's that scene where Jeremy tries to parang play fight with he tries to put him in a headlock and then the mom's like, don't do that. Enough of that, not at the dining table. But when you watch it again, it's like it's not out of concern for Chris. It's just that don't damage the goods.
The goods,
we need that body. Okay, that's why also they're so concerned with Chris is smoking. They're on him a lot about it. So parang, diba?
Don't damage your body. Okay, wow, nice.
And then there's one part now I'm not so sure about, but there's a stuffed lion beside the bed. And then,
what was that?
Diba?
He turns it around so it doesn't look at him.
He averts the lion's gaze.
So he's like, he doesn't want to be prey? Or what is it? I don't know.
I think it could be that there. Like sa akin lang, what I thought was he doesn't want that gaze leveled on him. He doesn't want to be under scrutiny.
People looking at... okay. Sure.
But parang as prey, diba? So parang as a black man, it's like you're always feeling like you're being hunted. So parang maybe that's it. But I was curious about it because it's in the script, it's that specific. But it's never really brought up again. In the script or the movie, I thought it would be revealed that there was like, one of those nanny cams.
A camera or something. Yeah. That's what I thought too.
So, but it's not there. And then, but he goes outside to try and steal a smoke. And then you get that classic running sequence that became a meme. It became a viral challenge na even Kaluuya was involved in because Lupita Nyong'o did it to him in the set of Black Panther. But later on, they realize what it was a reference to, diba? Which is the grandfather still obsessed with losing to Jesse Owens. He keeps trying to beat the time that Jesse Owens had that beat him. And then, I don't know, I mean, siguro naman you guys, we don't have to go through with what Jesse Owens did naman, diba?
Yeah.
All right. So Google nyo na lang if there are any children's listening in. And then he also sees Georgina.
Well, we can if you want to clarify it.
Well, in a nutshell, Jesse Owens was a black Olympian runner who won gold at the 36 Munich Olympics, where
in front of Hitler,
who was already spouting his nonsense about master races, and here was a black man saying "F you to that, I'm gold bitches," and then so there's the closest I guess to a jump scare. Do you remember this one, Chris? When he's parang creeping around the house, and then the shot of Georgina crossing the hall in the kitchen, and then there's like a stinger, ganon. That's the only parang close to cheap scare there, but. Okay lang, kasi that's it. And then the mom is hiding parang in the dark in the office, and then she says something like, "Do you know how dangerous smoking is?" And then she coerces him into the office for the first sort of hypnosis session. And this is interesting to me for a couple of reasons. The thing is also, as na stuff is weird, and yet it's this thing that was brought up in another film I love, which is Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, where everyone's seen that, right? Hopefully it's not like super spoilery, but
no, I love it.
Okay, so there's a scene where alam na ni Blomqvist na bad guy is bad guy. And then bad guy shows up, and then bad guy's like, "Oh, pasok ka muna, let's have a drink," ganyan. And he does. And then when he gets captured later on, he gets chided for it by bad guy. Kasi he was like, "You already knew I was the bad guy eh. But you came in anyway because you didn't want to be impolite." And that's one of those things na, parang is always a struggle nga with Chris being a black man. It's like he always feels like he has to play a certain role, be nice, representative, not be a threat. So he sits down, and then he gets, he sort of gets into this non-consensual hypnosis session where he gets to experience the sunken place for the first time. And then it brings up also how his mom died, which is she died in a hit and run, but she didn't die immediately. We'll find that out later. But what happened was when Chris was a kid and the mom died, he was at home watching TV and he didn't move. Time just kept passing and he wouldn't do anything. Because if he did anything like call the aunt, then it might make something bad become real. And then they also show the shot of parang he's frozen watching TV, but he's scratching the bedposts with his hands. And then it cuts also to him scratching the arms of the chair while in the office with his hands.
And then they refer to it later.
Yes, and this becomes very important later on.
Very important.
Yeah.
How does he save his life?
Later. We'll get to that.
Okay, we'll get to that. Okay, it's a good reveal. Well, yeah, so that's it for this episode of maybe episodes of Get Out. Thank you so much for coming on, Ramon.
I miss you,
awesome.
I miss you.
I miss you guys also.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Bye, guys.
Sorry na lang whoever's gonna edit this.
They're coming to get you, Barbara.
Brought to you by Big Baby Studios.